Welcome to the Plant-Free MD podcast with Dr. Anthony Chaffee, where we discuss diet and nutrition and how this affects health and chronic disease, and show you how you can use this to optimize your health and happiness, both mentally and physically. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining me for another episode of the Plant-Free MD. I'm your host, Dr. Anthony Chaffee, and today I have a very special guest, Mrs. Susan Harris, who I met in Costa Rica doing the reversed series down there. And we're here to talk to her about her story and recovery, and also about her books that she's been writing. She writes children's books, and we're going to hear more about that. Susan, thank you so much for coming on. It's a pleasure to see you again.
Thank you so much for having me on, Dr. Chaffee. It's wonderful to see you. You look great, and congratulations on your engagement.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And you look great too. And you were, well, that's a good place to start. For people who haven't come across you and your story, can you tell us a bit about you and how you came to a carnivore diet and what your results were?
Yeah, it was back in 2021 that I was very, very sick. I had a number of symptoms that were just very out there. I was throwing up. I had bruises and bumps, unexplained ones on my skin. I was just weighing 117 pounds, so there really was no reason why I should be this sick. My vision was blurry, and I couldn't concentrate very well. I was feeling very scared to even be left alone. I was pretty high maintenance in that regard, very fearful. A sense of dread was over me. I had suffered from constipation also, and that's when I went to the doctor. And based on my symptoms, he decided to test for colon cancer. And that was very, very scary to hear. And so we did our tests, and on September 29th, 2021, the receptionist phoned me and she said the doctor would like you to come in today. And I went in, and he said, the good news is you do not have colon cancer. The bad news is you have type 2 diabetes with an A1C level of 13.2.
Wow. Goodness. Yeah. So for people who don't know about HbA1c, that's a marker of a sort of it's thought to be a 3-month average. It's supposed to be a 3-month average of blood sugar, and that's the glycation end products, the advanced glycation end products from glucose and hemoglobin. So this is what we talk about when we get damage to our body from being diabetic or having this blood sugar spike. And you can even if you're not diabetic and you can get your blood sugar down, you have that spike in blood sugar that's damaging your body, and it comes down. But that area under the curve is all damage to your body. And then when you're diabetic, it's always above the curve, and you have this big, massive area under the curve. And so you get more and more damage, and that compounds, and that's what kills diabetics. That's what makes their toes rot off, and they have to get foot and leg amputations. Their kidneys fail. The most common cause of kidney failure is diabetic complications. They get diabetic retinopathy. People go blind. They get atherosclerosis, heart disease. They get Alzheimer's, being told type 3 diabetes, hormonal dysfunction, PCOS, premature menopause, and ovarian failure, again, from insulin resistance and damage. And then, they can die from the complications of diabetes. So very, very serious. HbA1c should, be well and truly under 6, and over 6.5 is typically considered diabetic. And so 13.2 is massive. That's a massive level.
And my doctor said, I'm going to put you on metformin. And something in my mind at that point in time, it was a gut instinct to just fight. And I said, please give me 3 months. And if my lifestyle changes to diet, exercise, and what have you don't make a difference, then I will take the medication you offer. So he also knew I was a writer. He had a certain level of confidence that if I say I will do something, I will indeed follow through. And he slapped on a continuous glucose monitor on my arm. And he said, I need you to monitor your blood sugar level with this. He gave me a prescription to purchase more. And using that, I started to track what my blood sugars were as I was eating. So I never took medication. And in 32 days, my fasting blood sugar was normal.
Hmm.
And when I went back to him, I was just at the very low end of diabetes after 3 months. He had never seen this kind of results that someone did not use metformin or any insulin or anything. And you go from 13.2 to like 6 point something in 3 months. He had never seen that before. Rather, it was 7.2. And by 7 months, I was in pre diabetic mode. And today I am at 5.7. I took my A1C test last week, but I knew it would have been lower because, you know, Dr. Chaffee, excitement and whether it is positive or negative, it raises blood sugar. And I released this book, What Will Timmy Eat, on September 3rd. And I have been in high alert mode. I have been very anxious about it and excited. And with all of that, my blood sugar, my A1C level was 5.7 on September 28th when I did those tests.
Yeah.
So I have maintained it over the years.
Nice. Well, that's great. So your dietary interventions, what exactly were you eating in order to achieve those results?
Yes, so back then I didn't know about carnivore, so
Mhm.
I just went on a low carb diet.
Mhm.
I began to eat, I continued eating the regular foods, as a matter of fact, the fresh fruits and vegetables that, you know, the Canada Food Guide had
Mhm.
told me what to eat. The dietitian had given me, you know, a picture of what our plate should look like. So I was eating the vegetables, the fruits, the nuts, the grains, the meats, in the amount that they told us. Half of your plate should be fruits and veggies, quarter of your plate should be grains and nuts, and the other quarter should be protein that came from animal as well as nuts. Um,
Mhm.
a quarter of my plate should be carbs rather, not nuts. So the different grains and pastas and potatoes and stuff. So I just started to cut down the amount I was eating. I looked at my portion sizes. I bought a little scale and I started to be very conscious of what I was eating. And that really helped me drop a few pounds, even though I didn't really have much pounds to drop, but I still dropped some. And so I got good numbers while being on the regular diet.
Mhm.
I came down into pre diabetes range. However, I was still having a number of symptoms. While the blood sugars were leveling off, I was still having the unexplained bruises. I was still having a lot of itching on my skin, a lot of inflammation, and a lot of pain. So when I actually met you in Costa Rica, I was at that stage where the blood sugars were getting pretty okay, but the inflammation and the pain and all of that was still there. And then you, Dr. Ken Berry, Dr. Sarah Zaldova, with all the education we learned there, I realized that if I should go on this carnivore diet, then this will really help me. So by removing the nuts, which I thought was so good, like almond nuts, for example, they're perfect for someone with diabetes, you would think,
Mhm.
because it doesn't spike blood sugar. But what it was doing with its very, very high oxalate content, it was creating a lot of inflammation in my body. So, for example, as you will know, a half cup of almonds has 244 milligrams of oxalates. Spinach has 755 milligrams of oxalates. Those were the things that I was told
Mhm.
to eat from the Canada Food Guide, and they were killing my metabolic system. And cauliflower had only 2.7 milligrams. So I have practically given up what I was taught as healthy.
Mhm.
Only about 1/8 of what I have been told to eat on the Canada Food Guide is what I could really eat to be metabolically healthy, to have no inflammation, to have no bumps and bruises, to have no blurry vision, and to have my blood glucose level be normal. What I eat is just from the protein section here, some dairy, eggs, meat, and fish, cheese. And I keep apples at home instead of oranges because I say when a person has had diabetes, it's always good to have something sweet. I don't keep chocolates or anything. I keep apple around, and I sometimes eat cauliflower, very rarely.
Mhm.
Because on the carnivore diet, I started to lose weight. I went down to 92 pounds and I thought,
Mm.
oh my goodness, I don't have much weight to lose. I'm about 100 right now. So I just interjected back an apple sometime once a month, add a little bit of cauliflower sometime once a month also. But it's primarily what you all taught us about a carnivore diet that got got me into the fives, so 5.7 mmol per liter is my A1 is my no my fasting is like
Mhm.
4.9
Yeah, perfect.
mmol per liter,
Hmm.
and my A1C is like 5.7. So I'm constantly in the fives, but it was my carnivore diet that has pushed me and kept me there.
Oh, good. It's yeah, between like 4 and 5, that's what I typically would say is an ideal
Yeah.
fasting glucose range. So that's perfect. The HbA1c can be a bit of a blunt instrument because you don't know for sure that your red blood cells are living 3 months. It could be a little longer, a little shorter, but it gives you a rough guide. But your day to day, like with a CGM, as long as the CGM is accurate, be a bit better. And you just take your fasting glucose, and it's 4.9, something like that. That's perfect. Um,
Yes, that is what was happening since 7 months after
mhm.
just going on my regular, never taking medication or anything in 2022. I had no diabetes. But the powers that be, they always want to see these numbers. And so, unless you can actually produce an A1C that they feel happy with, they're thinking you still have diabetes. So
Mhm.
I still go and I do all the checks, and the doctors here have been very, very surprised. They have been
Yeah.
totally flabbergasted that diabetes could be reversed. They
Mm,
have the highest of respect for what I've done.
good.
And one told me in all his 30 years of practice, he has never seen this happen. So it's a
Yeah.
true testament to
Mm.
just the fact that diabetes could be reversed. Metabolic dysfunction could become functional again.
Absolutely. Hey guys, just want to take a second to thank our sponsor, Carnivore Bar. I don't promote many products because honestly, all you need to be healthy is to just eat meat. For those times that you're out hiking, road tripping, or stuck at work and you want a nutritious snack that is just meat, fat, and salt if you want it, the Carnivore Bar is a great option. So I like this product not because it's just pure meat, but also because I want the carnivore market to thrive as well. And the more we support meat-only products, the more meat-only products there will be available in the mainstream. So if this sounds like something you'd like to get behind, check it out using my discount code Anthony to get 10% off, which also applies to subscriptions, giving you 25% off total. All right, thanks guys. And even just cutting out a lot of the garbage and just making very conscious food choices, even that massively improved your HbA1c, which is fantastic. The
For
CGM,
sure.
yeah, the
Yeah.
CGM monitors. I wonder I'd be curious what your experience is with that, because a lot of times when we see patients with a CGM and they try eating certain things and their blood sugar whoop, it goes way up, like, oh, okay, I don't like that. And that helps control what they're eating as well,
Yes,
and sort of point them in the right direction. Did you find that as well?
I did. And I felt that that was the reason I had the success I had,
Mm-hmm.
because I'd be eating a strawberry. My doctor
Mm-hmm.
was very good. He said, just you can take this reading 100 times a day. Just practice with it. And so I came home and I started to eat a strawberry, and I would see 22. And then I decided that I have to stop this. And so I started to wean myself. I kept a spreadsheet. And actually, I have another book here that is called my Sweet Life Diabetes Journal, because now you probably know I've been a teacher. So creating curriculum, tracking things, doing spreadsheets, measuring, they come very naturally to me. I've also taken lean training, and we're constantly measuring and trying to do better. So I had no resources, Dr. Chaffee. I
Mhm.
just bought some cheap little books from the dollar store and I just started to write down the foods I was eating, the number of grams, and the blood sugar reading. Sometimes I'd have 28 readings a day. And
Mhm.
from that, I began to extract a pattern. I even put them into my Excel spreadsheet. And then at the end of when I came back from Costa Rica, I thought, I should just put it into a book because I had made all of this progress. I didn't know that there were even books or if this could help people, but it was the jotting down, it was the tracking, it was the measuring, it was paying attention to what those numbers were saying on my arm as I flashed that CGM.
Mhm.
Now, what I didn't realize is that you can also have a lot of havoc being done with the CGM. So, for example, 2 weeks ago, I decided to just put on one, and it kept telling me my 6.9. And I'm thinking, how could this be at 6.9? And I haven't even eaten anything. And I went and did a blood poke, and my blood poke was 3.9.
Mm.
So sometimes you have to be careful that the CGMs do, in fact, work.
Yeah.
So I buy mine from Abbott. They're very good with their customer service. And um, I reached out to them and they explained that sometimes things can go wrong. No, it was very, very hot here in Canada this year for summer. And they said sometimes humidity, temperatures, a number of things can set some of these readings off. So I've learned to sometimes, if I see a reading, to then take another blood poke and see what the disparity is, if any. But
Mhm.
in those first years, after coming to Costa Rica, I had never poked my finger because I am a big scaredy cat. I only started to poke my finger a few months now because I was weaning myself off now that I have excellent blood sugars.
Mhm.
But really, I would say to anyone, if you want to get your diabetes type 2, that is, I'm talking about, under control, that CGM is the game changer. When you
Mhm.
see that, when you see those numbers, something changes in your psyche and you get a sense of self control that you probably didn't have before.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's good. I'm glad that that helped. It is funny that you added back in some fruits and vegetables to put on weight. Most people are saying, oh, you have to eat fruits and vegetables to like lose weight and stop eating, replace fat and all these sorts of things. That's funny to hear that you added those things in to gain a bit of weight. Um, Typically when I see people losing more weight than they want, it may be because they're under eating. And sometimes fruits and vegetables, you're just getting more in and things like that. But if you if you just increase the amount of meat that you're eating, that typically will offset that, and you won't lose too much weight. It's really easy to undereat on a carnivore diet, I find, because you just feel so satiated and satisfied. And you're like,
That's it.
yeah,
Yes, yes. I
yeah,
was eating a little bit and being really satisfied, and
hmm
I wasn't hungry, but I was still losing the weight. So
yeah,
I decided I was going to eat some apples and I
hmm
was going to drink some more milk.
hmm
I
yeah,
made carnivore ice cream with the 35% fat
Mm.
cream, and that helped me put on some weight.
Yeah, that'll do it. And yeah, and that'll
Yeah.
increase. Yeah, because milk and milk products will have casein, casomorphines, which will increase your hunger. And so,
Yes.
they'll get you eating a bit more. But
Mm-hmm.
you can go by taste. So if you keep eating fatty meat until it stops tasting good, that's
Mm-hmm.
typically how much your body wants. And if you're trying to put on weight, then you need to do that at least 2 times a day. And
Yes.
so you just keep eating until you sort of get that bite that sort of tastes like cardboard. And then you're just like, okay,
Yes.
but you can stop. But we're so used to like stopping once we feel we can stop. So we feel we should
Mm-hmm.
stop.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what you want to do anymore. You want to keep going. You want to keep going until you get to a point where like, no, I don't want to eat anymore. So you
Yeah.
get your fill every single time, and you do that twice a day, and you'll typically be able to maintain a very healthy weight, and certainly not lose weight, and even put on healthy weight if that's what you need to do too.
Yes, it's interesting you mentioned about the fruits actually
Mhm.
help put on weight because it did for me, some apples, some
Mhm.
cauliflower. And um, I think that what our food guides, and this may be true in any country, these things are so grafted or in the greenhouses, they have been injected with so much sugar and fructose content and additives that
Mhm.
these things are no longer helping us because they're not what our ancestors ate. Tim and I, we live on a farm here.
Mhm.
We go out into the wild and the strawberries are really, really tiny.
Yeah.
They are so tiny. And the ones we buy in the supermarket, like they're huge.
Yeah.
And there's a difference when you eat it. And so people are thinking, oh, yes, if I go and I eat these fruits and vegetables here, I will lose weight. Well, no. It in my case, it put on weight as you so astutely derived just now. And it's also adding to the blood sugar level. It is not helping us. And so there needs to be that kind of education that for people with type 2 diabetes, they should not just be given this, something like this, and just carte blanche, do this yourself, because this is not helping with type 2 diabetes. It's not helping with metabolic dysfunction. And I made a study of myself and I found it to be true. And I
Mhm.
think if a number of people would take the time to isolate foods and to introduce foods and track what it's doing to them, in a week's time, they could begin to see what's not working and they can change their lifestyle too.
Yeah, definitely. Um, so that's all very good points. And I wanted to ask as well, you did write a recent book, the one that we have there, the What Will Timmy Eat? Um, and can you tell us a bit about that and why you wrote it?
Yes, well, actually, as I mentioned earlier, I have been a writer for
Mhm.
a number of years. This book I brought to Costa Rica,
Mm.
Little Cup of Pennies for Kids. These are my best sellers, which I
Mhm.
wrote when the Canadian penny was moving out of circulation back in 2012. They went on to become local bestsellers here. So I
Nice.
took those. They were published by Borealis Press, and then he did for me. That printing company did Alphabet on the Farm in English and French. So I took a few copies, three or four down, and Dr. Ken Berry,
Mhm.
he saw them. He was pretty impressed, and he said to me, off the cuff, why don't you write a book on what kids should eat for breakfast? Because we don't have anything like this. The
Sure.
carnivore education was brand new to me. When I pitched for it, I had never heard of it before. And I became a dedicated disciple of it
Mhm.
since. And so in this book, I look at the high carb, processed, sugary foods. Did you get a chance to look at the PDF I had sent you?
Only part of it. I haven't read
Okay.
it. Yeah.
And the so it's a competition between the high processed carbs, refined sweet, sugary foods, and
Mhm.
the proteins. So Timmy goes down to breakfast and he finds all of these foods, the typical foods that kids eat, jams and jellies and eggs and sausage and bacon, as well as toast and muffins and all the typical thing that kids have for breakfast here. And as he picked up a bowl and spoon to get his breakfast, the bowl becomes a racetrack and all the food become alive. So there's that element of magic. And the foods begin to make a case as to
Mm.
why Timmy should eat them. So we have here the breakfast room and the racetrack, and the foods become alive.
Mm.
And so Bread says, there's none like me, Bread was boasting, in white or brown, sliced up for toasting. And the pancake says, choose me, called the pancake, you won't make a mistake. And so all of the foods begin to make a case as to why Timmy should eat them. Steak and bacon, sausage and butter, listened to the noise and smiled at each other. They knew that they could do what the rest could not. They didn't raise blood sugar and they made a healthy gut. They were full of protein and lots of good fat. They tasted yummy, delicious. And what could beat that? And so it's a lovely rhyming scheme, very attractive to kids. And the cereal, sugary cereal, is just such an enemy that really should not be on anybody's breakfast table, especially kids. And I wanted to write this because if we have healthy children, we will have healthy adults. The one precedes the other. And so Frost Cereal had the idea, let's have a race, and whoever wins, Timmy will eat them. And so the race happens, and it was very interesting. The sugary carb foods, when they encountered the juice or bread, they melted and disintegrated. And when the proteins, the eggs, the bacon, the steak, when they got wet from the apple juice, they kept their shape, they kept their density. And I thought that was so indicative of the strength of the foods versus how carbs are just broken down and they're no good. They give no energy. And so we have the race happening, and we wouldn't give away the end as to what has happened here. And I'll flip to the back of the book. There's your name, Dr. Chaffee.
Oh, really?
There's your name. Oh. Yes, I did some acknowledgement for all the individuals we met at Costa Rica because they were instrumental in the journey of reversing type 2 diabetes for me. So the idea is from Dr. Ken, and then I have all of your names and Dr. Nice. Chaffee, Dr. Kills, Maria Emmerich, Charles Maddox, etc. And at least one online URL or website where people can find your information. And I usually write a letter to the children. In all of my books, I write a letter to dear boys and girls and just, talk to them a little bit and encourage them about the books I'm writing. In this one, however, because parents are the decision makers of what children eat, I have written the letter to the parents. And I encourage them to have this discussion with their children, to be open-minded about what is being suggested here. And I look at what our ancestors ate. They didn't have labels on their foods. They didn't have grafted greenhouses, and they didn't have additives and processed and refined foods. So we use the same names. They had probably 8 apples straight off the tree, but not Honey Crisp that we find here now that is loaded with extra sugar. They probably ate the wild strawberry, not the ones that are big and juicier and redder here because it has undergone so much transformation. So it's important for parents and anyone who's reading it to understand that though the foods of long ago and the foods of today carry the same name, they are spelt the same way. They certainly do not produce the same effect on our bodies right now. And what we are eating today is destroying us. So it's that kind of call to action to go back and to examine what our ancestors ate. What were the ingredients in their foods? What were the labels, if any, that they had? And, you had spoken about the Inuit people back in Costa Rica, and I had checked it out when I came back here, and how they lived for so long and for so healthily and what they ate. And so we need to be open-minded about what we are giving the children because if we want a healthy community, a healthy society, a healthy world, and healthy adults, we need to start with healthy children. And I've used myself as an example that if I had been eating healthy foods as a young child and not what we thought we should be eating, then I wouldn't be saddled with diabetes in my adult life.
Yeah, definitely not. Well, I think it's great that you wrote that book, and it is a lovely book, and it's a great idea as well, having the whole competition and talking about, what the different foods bring to the table, no pun intended, and because it is very
That
important.
was cute.
Yeah. And it is important, obviously. I mean, when you start these behaviors in childhood, they carry on to adulthood. I mean, they try to blame obesity on genetics because they say, well, 80% of if your parents are obese, 80% of the time, the children will be obese. Well, the parents are the ones that make, are the decision makers, like you say. So, they're the ones, they're eating a certain way, living a certain lifestyle, and they're getting obese from that. Um, they're the ones buying the food for the kids. The kids are eating the same thing the parents are, just in probably different amounts. And they're learning those habits and behaviors from the parents. And then they grow up having, unhealthy habits as an adult, and then they pass those on to their kids. But, if you start off young and you get those really healthy habits, and like you said, not everybody knows, what's unhealthy or not. We're doing what we're supposed to. We're eating fruits and vegetables and grains and this is and
Yes.
that, and we're avoiding meat because that's thought to be healthy. Yeah, but it may not be. Now, if you're very careful and you have a CGM monitor and you can perfectly track this, okay, well then maybe you can navigate around a more traditional omnivorous diet that avoids processed foods, but not everybody has access to that, and not everybody is able to do that. And it's not something you can just do intuitively. Like, you need a glucose monitor to track that, or you eat in a traditional way that humans have been eating since humans have been humans, and you don't need to. You don't need a CGM. You don't need a monitor. You don't need to track. Your body does that for you. And if we teach kids, how to eat properly without technology, then they have those habits set down for a lifetime. So that's great. Thank you so much for doing that.
Yes, it really was a good experience. It was primarily the science was drawn from my life and what I saw and my trackings and my recordings and my observations. And
Mm.
I would say to people who are sometimes skeptical, because a lot of people are skeptical about what we're eating and stuff, it's like you've been eating what you've been told was good and you're still so sick. You're still so unhealthy. Why not try something different?
Mhm.
Give it a try, because once you have experienced health, you will not want to go back to those things that what they told you was healthy. I eat absolutely nothing from here. I eat absolutely practically nothing from there. So out
Mhm.
of this, only 1/8 of this Canada Food Guide do I eat. But I
Mm.
was eating this like a good citizen, told what I was eating was good nutrition. And I was eating diabetes, Dr. Chaffee.
Mm.
I was eating diseases. I posted on my Facebook page that I asked myself this question of every food and drink: am I eating disease? And
Mm.
when you begin to reckon with yourself like that, when you begin to be accountable to yourself, the desert rat has this line, go placidly among the world, blah, 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 but to thine own self be true.
Mm.
And when we could learn to be true to our own self based on what we know and how we live, then we will shut up the cynics and we will silence the skeptics.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the thing too, is that you've done this yourself. It doesn't matter what anybody else says. It doesn't matter what I say. It doesn't matter what any study says. This is true. You've done it for yourself. You've seen in hard numbers and
Mhm.
symptoms, what this has done for you. And at the end of the day, that's the only thing that matters. Well, that's only anecdotal. It still happened. And so, for whatever reason, it did happen for you. And that's important. That's important to take note of. And it's important to be careful because it doesn't matter if you have all the studies and data in the world that says you should do X, and this will give you the best result. And that gives you a worse result. And that gives you a bad result. And you do what they say, oh, that's just anecdotal. We don't have evidence. No, evidence is in many forms. The evidence exists outside of a randomized controlled trial. We have no
Yeah.
studies and randomized controlled trials showing that parachutes work. Are you going to use
Mhm.
a parachute? Probably,
Mm.
go skydiving without a parachute. Well, there's no evidence. There's no evidence that a parachute is better than just jumping out of a plane without a parachute. Like, no, there is
Right.
evidence. It's just that, you don't know what evidence means. And so, saying that there's no evidence, it's just anecdotal. And well, this person fell out of a plane, he didn't have a parachute and he died. Well, that's just anecdotal. I mean, there's no study that shows that. It's like,
Yeah.
we get tied up in academia. That's not science.
Hmm.
Science is about
Hmm.
observing the world around us and trying to figure out how it works. And
Yeah.
you see somebody fall from a cliff or out of a plane and they die at the end of it. You can actually understand how that works. There's no magic to it. You don't need a study to figure that out. And you can do this with other ways as well. And when you change your diet and you do it in very specific ways, and you get very specific results, and that is reproducible again and again and again and again, that is evidence, and that is very good evidence. And we need to use
Yes, for
that
sure.
data.
We create our own evidence. We all sit at a different spot on the bell curve, and
Hmm.
we have our uniqueness there. And that's almost a mantra I live by. Where am I on the bell curve? Because we are given treatments or we are told to do things that is going to work for whom? For somebody else, but probably not for us. We are so unique in some form or fashion that nothing will work 100% of the time for 100% of the people. And so we need to find our niche and where that is. And I am from the Caribbean. I was born in Trinidad and Tobago. I was looking at a statistic today, just before coming on here. 14.8% of the population of Trinidad and Tobago has diabetes. My
Yeah, wow.
ancestors are from India. That is another place that is type 2 diabetes ridden. I live here in Canada now for, a couple decades. 30% of the Canadian population are diabetic or pre-diabetic. And type 2 diabetes, we have 15% of the population have type 2 diabetes, including both diagnosed and undiagnosed. So when I have used myself as an example, I have represented Asia, Southeast Asia. I have represented the Caribbean. I have represented a part of Canada. And because, being a dark person, people also in Africa share the same kind of characteristics. People in China, there's a lot of diabetes there too. So I think that I'm representative of different people groups. I'm, I've been a teacher. I've held good management positions. So on the strata of education, yeah, I have postgraduate education too. So if we look at that strata, uh, um, inclusive there. I am a small person, a petite person. If you think small people can't get diabetes, look at me. And, so I think that there are so many levels that if a person wants to find an element to identify themselves, they can find it easily. They may not look like me, but they may be of another profession where you're learning things and you have this ability to make decisions. You have this ability to self regulate. And I would say, go ahead and self regulate. So I'd really like to encourage people to be more proactive in their own health. This is their health. They are the ones who have to be the most vested in it. Don't leave it to big companies who are for profit to create that profit at people's expense.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. We think, well, the government's there to help us. It's trying to do these guidelines to help everybody live properly because people just don't know how to live. So the government needs to tell us that. Um, that's not something, that's not a sentiment that people typically held, and for good reason. There may be good intentions, but that's not necessarily the case. But that's not the government's job, is to run people's life. And when something goes wrong, they don't pay the price for being wrong. Other people pay the price for being wrong, for them being wrong. And so, it's never a good idea to put the making power in the hands of people that pay no price for being wrong. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then, of course, we think that there's some sort of benevolence and kindness, like these governments are just these giant charity organizations, because they spend money on different sorts of programs. We think, oh, that's good. The government's helping me. Well, it's not their money. It's not like this is a
Mm-hmm.
business that's giving back. It's not like Carnegie setting up the Carnegie Foundation and Carnegie Mellon University and the Carnegie Hall and all these other sorts of things to sort of give back to society. They're taking taxes from people. This is our money, and they're just sort of, they take money from us quietly and then give some of it back lavishly and extravagantly, and they get the impression that there's some sort of benign, benevolent entity.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, it's just people, and it's politics, and they get influenced just like anybody else can. And there's a lot of money in politics. And so if you have these big corporations that have an agenda, that want to push a product, and
Mm-hmm.
they're able to fund a candidate in their election, they are very likely to get, the political uh, backing for different guidelines, et cetera, that promote their product. And that's something that we have to be very realistic about. It's not a
Yeah.
conspiracy theory. That's just life. I mean, like, of course, there's money in politics, and that's one of the things. It was always thought that political lobbying the government and donating to politicians is the best investment on earth, because you can get up to 1,000 fold return on investment. You
Mm-hmm.
donate $1 million to a campaign, and then you get these sweetheart deals and tax breaks, or not
Yeah.
necessarily even tax breaks, but federal funding to push into something. And so
Yes.
you lobby the government, you get a ton of taxpayer money as a result of that. That's what people do,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
part of that has to do with guidelines, because if you're influencing the guidelines, you're influencing universities and professors and their research on what, Tufts University, that was something that came out a couple of years ago, that they sort of made these dietary recommendations. And they had this grading system where, like, Honey Nut Cheerios and Frosted Flakes were well above ground meat and eggs, right?
Yes, I saw that with the SAD, the American diet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons. Now ours didn't look so bad in terms of I didn't really see like a box of cereal here, but this is what I was eating. I've been in Canada 27 years now. My specialist said that now we have some different guidelines here. I think it's a bit lower so than the US, for example. So if you're under 5.9, you have no diabetes, and I think in the US you have to be under 5.7
Mm-hmm.
with your A1C to be declared not having diabetes. And the specialist said, you live in Canada, you eat the foods in Canada, you have the different climate in Canada, so you've got to have that. You've got to go by your Canadian measure. Because I was asking, well, why does this US have a higher standard? But I was saying that to say that I was following what looked really good, and I was eating diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
I was eating that because Dr. Ken Berry said for me to have had an A1C level of 13.2%, I would have had that in my body for 10 years. But I have always been a very high functioning person. I have always been a person who I can push myself and I can meet goals. And so even if I didn't feel well, I could still stay up all night and study and make change and do something different. So because I was a high achiever, the sickness did not really, uh, it didn't show itself to make me like really debilitated until A1C of 13.2. And then I started to really, really go down, deteriorating very fast in 2021. We have a day bed there, and I would lie on that day bed in pain and I couldn't get up. I was 117 pounds and, fairly young and active. And these sicknesses were so unexplained, that they were so foreign to me. They were not even very much in genetic things. Now, my mother was diagnosed with diabetes in her late 70s. She's now 85. So why was I being diagnosed with diabetes in my 50s, So it was very alarming. And I think people need to start asking questions of what they hear. And Frederick Taylor, he is this father, he's been termed the father of scientific management. And when he was creating his theories, his premise was that we needed a mental revolution in order to change the economy. It wasn't going to be changed by anything. It had to first start here before it could wield out in dollars and cents and productivity and all of those labor things. So I believe that that's the same thing that we need to do here. We need to challenge what the experts have told us all the time in terms of what is good to eat and what is not good to eat, and including those cereals and including what they say about the ground meat and the eggs and all that kind of thing. And if each person would be brave to do that and say, you know what, I am going to do what's working for my body based on how I feel, based on how I see my health changes, those individual actions will produce a collective body of changes. And I think that that is what is happening, because I had never heard of carnivore diet or the word carnivore or anything like that. I know I call it now a meat-based diet because some people don't like the words or whatever. Oh, I say very high protein, very low carb, zero carbs. And I said, my testimony is myself. Look at me. I saw a friend who hadn't seen me in more than a year, and her first thing was, you look amazing. And, nice clothes and makeup and high heel shoes to go to work always makes a person look good. But now I have true health on the inside, in addition to still having the high heel shoes and the nice clothes and all of that. So it's really a personal change that will make this movement of health come into being.
Yeah. Well, that's great that other people are noticing the changes as well. How's your husband Tim doing, and what about people around you? Are they starting to come around to this too, or they still think you're weird?
Oh no, we have had a lot of people very, very interested. And Tim, actually,
Good.
he's probably on the couch. Tim, are you there?
I sure am.
Oh, do you want to come and say hi to Dr. Chaffee? He's asking about you. Do you?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Could he join in?
Yeah, please.
Oh, lovely. Come.
Scoot
Yes, scoot over.
Hey,
Great to see you, Dr. Chaffee.
hey, good to see you too. How have you been?
Oh, been doing real well. I've been quite enjoying my. I tell people I was really at the fountain of youth when I was in Costa Rica, because the way I changed my eating habits, the energy, the flexibility, I don't know what I'd do without it now.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. So,
You are his hero.
oh,
He shows your picture to everybody. We have a picture of you and him we took in Costa Rica. He has your picture on the magazine Women's World when you made that front page cover. Remember?
yeah.
Yeah, so you were Tim's hero. Go ahead.
And we had matching shirts. I think that's what really made the difference was the matching shirts.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, well, that's good. Well, and so you guys have been doing pretty well on the carnivore diet since then, I hear.
Oh, for sure. It's an amazing thing. And one of the positive things I found is we tell people who, like, every week when I meet people I haven't bumped into for a while, I tell them what I've been up to. There is gaining traction that you just don't hear about, that people have said somebody in my family, or maybe even they themselves, have been researching how to eat different. And it's made a big difference. It's not a strange word to tell them about the carnivore diet. I'm actually surprised how many people have heard about it.
A lot of them follow you and then follow Dr. Berry. They knew your names even when we came back and mentioned those names.
Nice.
Oh yes, we follow them on YouTube and all of that. So a lot of people have been very, very interested. And we've spoken to, I don't know, hundreds of people one-on-one too about it.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good. So that's, I mean, it's always interesting to hear people's interactions with other people. Obviously, some people hear, well, a lot of people will hear this and be like absolutely gobsmacked and be like, wait, hold on, you do what? And they just think you're a bit crazy. But then that's great to hear that more and more people are like, oh yeah, no, I've heard about that. That's really interesting because when I was first doing, well, when I was doing this more publicly and people around work were finding out about it, I mean, they were just blown away. And so I was in like long conversations multiple times a day, with saying the same things over and over again, about cholesterol and fiber and nutrients and this is and that's. And it's just like, they're like, hold on, wait a minute, what? And it was always funny. It's great now that there's enough headway that people have at least heard about it, and at least when you mention it, they know what you're talking about instead of just being something they just like a bolt from the blue. Like, hold on, wait, I've never heard of this before. So that's really great that it's grown enough that people at least know about it. Hey everyone, really happy to announce a new sponsor for the show and for everybody down in Australia, Stockman Steaks, who are delivering high quality grass-fed and finished pasture-raised beef and other meats, flash frozen and vacuum sealed to your door, something that I've been enjoying a lot of myself recently as well. They also have a great range of specialty items such as high-fat keto mince and carnivore beef and organs mince with liver, kidneys, and beef heart as well. So use code Chaffee today for a free order of beef mince or another specialty gift along with your order at stockmansteaks.com.au, and I'll see you over there. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, one of the things I do is that I share my results of my A1C tests. I tell them when I'm going to do my test and I tell them what the result is and what I eat. And I say, message me if you need help. And lots of people have messaged me and I support a number of them. When you fall off, just start again. Instead of eating 2 slices of bread, eat 1 and then eat an extra egg or 2. So, as I think they need very practical steps on how to move away from what they're doing and into more protein. So it's been a great journey.
Yeah.
One of the fun things I got to do with it is I actually won on a charity auction a spot on one of our local morning radio programs.
Nice.
And the show and yourself and all the experts, that was the topic for their morning show, and people are super interested in this and the changes some people have already made. So you're making a big difference, Dr. Chaffee. I don't know how many people in our area know you, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Oh, that's kind of fun. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. That's good that you got on a radio show to talk about that as well. Was that why they brought you on? Was that why you won that competition, or how'd that work?
So what it was is they're a popular radio station here, and every year they have a, a charity auction in conjunction. They offer a spot on their morning show as to
Ah,
support the
right.
charity, so you can bid on it, and you can go
Yeah.
on the show and you can kind of talk about whatever you want.
Hmm.
So I went loaded with all my carnivore information,
Yeah.
and they were quite interested because lots of their viewers, of course, or listeners, I should say. I mean, it's so prevalent the disease
Hmm.
that people are talking about this all the time, and to hear something new, but in a way, it's not so new as perhaps it could have used to been. I'm very pleasantly surprised when I talk to
Hmm.
people. Just today, I bumped into someone I hadn't saw for a long time, and true to Susan's word, somehow I had you're my picture on the phone. It's a great way to start a conversation on this. There,
Hmm.
I've got them like that when I show them the picture.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons is because if some people haven't heard about before, and to see your picture
Hmm.
and to say, you mean he eats meat?
Hmm.
Like he's not eating broccoli or anything? No,
God.
no, he's not.
Ugh.
And so then the conversation just flows from there. And the person I bumped into, she said, "Yeah, my son, he's a chef, and he intermittently does strictly carnivore." She says, he he's a chef, and but he finds such benefit from it. So without me having to explain all this, I just quickly bumped into a person who, yeah, they're very familiar with this terminology.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very
And
good.
actually,
Hmm.
last week, do you remember Dr. Vega from Costa
Hmm.
Rica?
Yeah.
Last week, Dr. Vega and myself were on the same radio station again. I was promoting the book, What Will Timmy Eat? And
Yeah.
Dr. Vega called in from Costa Rica, and he shared a lot of good information on the carnivore diet and just metabolic dysfunction and how this diet helps not just diabetes, but the whole spectrum of metabolic diseases.
Hmm. Oh, very good. That's great. How's Dr. Vega doing? I haven't spoken to him since a few emails back and forth. But he was a very nice guy, and it was
Yes,
Sure
yes.
is.
So
yeah,
he's doing very well. Yes,
good.
we've
Yeah,
kept in touch since
yeah.
we left. Yeah.
Oh, very good. Yeah. Well, that's great. And so, how long has the book been out, or is it currently available? How do people find it?
Yes, it was launched on September 3rd of
Hmm.
this year, last month. It's available on all Amazon, the favorite Amazon worldwide. It's
Hmm.
available in Barnes and Noble in
Hmm.
the States. It's available in Chapters Indigo in Canada. On any place where books are sold, I think the most important thing would be that people know the ISBN number
Okay.
because of the um, the ability or not enough space in stores. You cannot store every book. So if the book is
Hmm.
not there, they can simply ask that the book be brought in.
Hmm.
And the ISBN number for the paperback is 978-1738-972708.
Okay.
And people have told me that they found buying it from Amazon offered the fastest shipping. And one
Fantastic.
lady actually bought it for her teenagers, and she
Hmm.
she put a review on Amazon.com and Amazon.ca that she bought it for her teenagers, and they really enjoyed it. So
Hmm.
it's
Nice.
it's a book that is made for children, but it can change the life of adults as well as they begin to implement what is in there. So it really crosses the age spectrum.
Yeah, very good. Well, that was great. Well, thank you both so much. It's so great to see you both again. It was lovely
Oh,
to meet
great to see
you.
you, Dr. Chaffee.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah, and
yes.
it was so great. I really enjoyed it. That was one of the things I really was impressed by both of you. Is anytime we had like a group conversation or we were all talking together, the two of you were there with notepad and paper, and you were just taking notes the whole time, which I thought was very impressive. You know, you were very, you know, taking it very, very seriously, and had a lot of great questions as well. So it's great to see you both again, and to see that you both are doing so well, and helping out and getting this very important message, especially to kids. So thank you very much for doing that. How do people find you on social media, etc.? We know where to get your book, but where else can we find your work?
My website, www.susanharris.ca. Simply my name, susanharris.ca. The .ca is Canada. So it's easy there. And from there, my social media pages are available. So as long as they can go to susanharris.ca, they can find me there. On the contact page, they can send me a message. I answer all of my emails, and they can ask me questions on the contact page there as well. Perfect. Plus, you know, Messenger and those things too. But sometimes I'm not as often on social media as I used to be, because I changed my lifestyle after I was diagnosed with diabetes. And in addition to changing my eating patterns, and I do like 30 to 60 minutes every day on a treadmill or outside. So physically I'm active, diet-wise I'm good. But I found I had to pay attention to my thoughts, because you know that mind-body-soul connection is so real. And for me, if I'm excited, or if I am anxious, or if I am distracted on social media, my blood sugar level would go up. And I noticed that with my CGM. So sometimes I would stay away from social media for 2 weeks or something, and then pop back up for air, because it's a very intentional part of keeping healthy. So the fastest way for people to get to me is, you know, through my website, because I answer all my emails.
Perfect. Okay. Well, I'll put that up in the description down below so people can go down there and check it out, and see more of your work and get in contact with you if they so choose. Susan and Tim, thank you both so much for coming on again. It's an absolute pleasure. Great to see you again, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much for having us. Do say hi to Elle for us.
Yeah.
We constantly look at the pictures of all of you that we've had from there.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. From
Costa Rica.
Definitely will. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you both so much. And thank you everyone for watching. I hope you got a lot out of that. And please do send this on to people that you think would be benefited by this. And if you have any kids that might benefit from learning how to eat properly, please do go out and check out What Will Timmy Eat? Thank you all very much. We'll see you next time. Hey guys, thank you very much for taking the time out to listen to what I had to say. If you like it, then please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel and podcast. And if you're on YouTube, then please hit that little bell and subscribe, and that'll let you know anytime I have a new video out, which should be every week, if not more. And if you could share this with your friends, that would help me get the word out and let me know that you like what I'm doing. Thanks again, guys.